I blamed me, and then I felt really sad. The humans can be that way. And then
Report left everyone stunned, including his loyal supporters. As the world-famous dog whisperer who had built an empire around his unique approach to canine psychology, Millan had always been in the spotlight for his exceptional ability to transform troubled dogs. But the gravity of the moment in court was like nothing anyone had seen before. It wasn't just the weight of the legal sentence that broke him, but the culmination of years of mounting public criticism, personal tragedies, and professional controversies that had been building up beneath his confident exterior. Millan had always positioned himself as the ultimate authority on dog behavior, but recent events seemed to suggest that the man who could control any dog couldn't control his own fate. For years, Millan had been fighting to preserve his reputation against growing criticism of his methods. Despite being a household name with millions of devoted followers, animal rights activists and modern dog trainers had increasingly questioned his techniques. The pressure to defend his legacy while adapting to changing standards in animal training had taken a tremendous toll. However, it was in court where the emotional burden became unmistakably clear. He wasn't just fighting a legal battle, he was fighting for his entire identity, his legacy, and the future of the dog training empire that had made the dog whisperer a global phenomenon. The hearing was supposed to be just another chapter in the ongoing saga surrounding Millan's controversial methods. But when the judge read the verdict, Cesar visibly faltered. The weight of the legal ramifications hit him all at once, and in that moment, the public persona of the confident pack leader mentality crumbled. The courtroom went silent as Millan slumped in his seat, overwhelmed by the reality of what was about to unfold. This wasn't just about the financial damages or the tarnishing of his brand. It was about the emotional wreckage of years spent building an empire that was now threatening to collapse around him. His breakdown was a sign of something much deeper at play. While the courtroom drama was unfolding, the ripple effects were already being felt across the pet training industry and among his devoted fans worldwide. As news of his breakdown spread, supporters and critics alike began questioning the future of his training philosophy and his media empire. Millan, who had built his reputation on projecting calm, assertive energy, was left grappling with the reality that his methods might not survive the scrutiny of changing times. His collapse was more than just a personal failure. It was a turning point that could ultimately change the direction of dog training philosophy and the legacy of the Millan name. Despite the shocking nature of the moment, Cesar's collapse served as a warning of the emotional and psychological strain that comes with living in the public eye. It wasn't just the legal battles or the scandals that weighed him down. It was the constant need to live up to the image of being the infallible dog whisperer. Behind the scenes, Millan had always struggled with personal demons, from his illegal border crossing into the United States to his suicide attempt after his divorce and the death of his beloved pit bull. His breakdown was a stark reminder that even those who seem to have it all figured out can be silently fighting battles that no one sees. As the dog whisperer continued to dominate reality television and pet training literature, Cesar Millan found himself caught in a whirlwind of fame, fortune, and increasingly complex personal battles. The show, which originally began as a unique look into the world of dog psychology, had morphed into a global phenomenon. But behind the scenes, Millan's empire was far from the neatly packaged image presented on screen. The training center, which had once been a small operation, was now a multi-million-dollar business with international recognition. While the public loved watching Cesar transform aggressive dogs with seemingly magical abilities, few understood the deep layers of controversy and tension that surrounded his methods. Cesar, who had crossed the border from Mexico with only $100 in his pocket, was the ultimate American success story. He was known for his charismatic personality and his apparent ability to communicate with even the most troubled dogs, But it was his simple, confident demeanor that truly resonated with fans. With his catchphrases about being the pack leader and his emphasis on exercise, discipline, and affection, Millan became the face of dog training worldwide. But as his business grew, so did the scrutiny. Modern trainers and animal behaviorists increasingly criticized his dominance-based methods as outdated and potentially harmful. As the backlash grew, so did the pressure on Millan to defend his approach. For Cesar, dog training wasn't just a business, it was his entire identity. He had built his life around his special connection with dogs, learning techniques from his grandfather in rural Mexico before bringing them to the United States. But the pressure to maintain his image as the ultimate dog authority weighed heavily on him. As his show grew in popularity, so did the expectations placed on him. Fans expected miraculous transformations, while critics watched for any misstep that could prove their concerns were justified. His personal life, filled with financial struggles, a painful divorce, and bouts of depression, began to affect his ability to focus on his passion. The more his empire grew, the more it became clear that Cesar was not immune to the intense pressure that came with it. The legal battles, the public scandals, and the constant scrutiny all took a toll on Millan. It wasn't just the training business that was in jeopardy, it was his entire identity. As his methods came under fire from modern trainers advocating positive reinforcement techniques, Cesar found himself defending practices that were increasingly viewed as outdated. The collapse in court was just the tip of the iceberg, as deeper, darker issues within his personal and professional life began to surface. His breakdown was symbolic of the larger issues facing his empire, issues that threatened to bring everything crashing down. The dog training business, once focused on Cesar's natural ability to rehabilitate dogs and train people, had now become a high-stakes game filled with television contracts, book deals, and expensive training facilities. What started as a simple passion had grown into a massive operation with millions of dollars at stake. As the stakes grew higher, so did the risks, and Millan found himself at a crossroads. His collapse in court was just a sign of the deep cracks in the foundation of his carefully constructed image as the all-knowing dog whisperer. Behind the scenes of the dog whisperer, Cesar Millan's personal life was anything but calm and assertive. While his public persona portrayed him as the confident master of canine psychology, the reality was much more turbulent. For years, Cesar had struggled with his own pack of personal demons, battling depression, financial troubles, and the constant criticism that came with being a controversial figure in the animal training world. Despite his natural charisma and apparent ease with troubled dogs, Millan was never fully comfortable with the enormous responsibility placed on his shoulders. From an early age, Cesar had been drawn to working with animals, earning the nickname El Perrero, the dog boy, in his native Mexico. His passion for dogs was genuine, but the empire that grew around him created expectations that no single person could sustain. His struggles with depression, his 2010 divorce from his wife of 16 years, and his subsequent suicide attempt in 2010 created a perfect storm that made it increasingly difficult for him to maintain the unwavering confidence he displayed on camera. The gap between his public image and private turmoil grew wider with each passing year. Cesar's personal struggles became public knowledge when he admitted to attempting suicide by overdosing on pills following the death of his pit bull daddy and his divorce. It wasn't just a one-off incident, it was part of a larger pattern of emotional volatility that Cesar couldn't seem to shake. The pressure of being in the public eye, constantly scrutinized by fans and critics alike, had a profound impact on his mental health. His reputation as the unflappable dog whisperer became increasingly at odds with his personal struggles, making it even harder for him to live up to his own brand. As the years went on, Cesar's relationship with the evolving world of dog training became strained. While he had once been the undisputed king of dog training, the field was moving toward positive reinforcement methods and away from his dominance-based approach. The expectation that he would evolve while maintaining his brand identity was something Cesar struggled with. His techniques, which emphasized being the pack leader and establishing dominance, were increasingly criticized by trainers who advocated for force-free methods. It wasn't just about dog training anymore. It was about the emotional distance that grew between Cesar and a changing industry that was beginning to view his methods as potentially harmful. The culmination of Cesar's personal struggles came in the courtroom. The weight of his legal troubles, his personal demons, and the public scrutiny finally caught up with him, leading to his emotional breakdown. It wasn't just a moment of weakness. It was a reflection of the years of emotional and mental strain that Cesar had been enduring. His collapse in court was the breaking point, and it became a symbol of the toll that fame, outdated methodologies, and personal struggles had taken on him. While The Dog Whisperer entertained millions of viewers with Cesar's apparent ability to transform aggressive dogs, there was a darker side to his training empire that was often kept behind closed doors. The show's success allowed Millan to live a life of luxury, with a sprawling training facility and international fame. But that success came with its own set of challenges. For years, he had to deal with lawsuits from injured clients, criticism from animal welfare organizations, and accusations that his methods were harmful to dogs. In Cesar's case, his personal struggles and emotional breakdown were just symptoms of much larger problems within his philosophy and business practices. The empire that had become a household name thanks to the show was often portrayed as a place where miraculous transformations occurred through Cesar's special touch. But as the cameras stopped rolling, the true complexity of his methods became more evident. The lawsuits from clients who claimed they or their dogs were injured during training sessions, the complaints from animal rights groups about his use of shock collars and physical corrections, and the constant scrutiny that came with being in the public eye were starting to take their toll on Millan. Cesar, in particular, found himself at the center of several controversies that seemed to follow him wherever he went. In the aftermath of Cesar's collapse in court, many began to question how much of his training philosophy was based on solid behavioral science, and how much of it was simply about maintaining the public persona of the Dog Whisperer. Millan was no stranger to controversy, with animal welfare organizations frequently criticizing his methods and several incidents on his show raising red flags among modern trainers. From his use of choke chains and physical corrections to a particularly controversial incident where a dog under his care attacked a pig on camera, the criticisms continued to mount. But through it all, the business continued to thrive, even as cracks started to appear in the foundation. Cesar's collapse was a turning point. It wasn't just about his personal life, it was about the unraveling of his carefully crafted image. The world had come to know him as a man with an almost supernatural ability to calm aggressive dogs. But behind the scenes, there were deep-rooted issues that were threatening to destroy everything he had worked for. It wasn't just Cesar's emotional breakdown that revealed the cracks. It was the constant battles that he faced, from legal issues to personal conflicts that reached a boiling point. The collapse of Cesar Millan in court exposed more than just his own struggles. It was a wake-up call for everyone involved in his empire. The show had been a massive success, but it also had its fair share of skeletons in the closet. As more information about the behind-the-scenes drama surfaced, it became clear that the business that had built his wealth and fame was not as perfect as it seemed. The public's fascination with the Dog Whisperer was built on Cesar's personality and the dramatic transformations that occurred on the show. But as the cameras turned off, the true story of Millan began to emerge, revealing a man under immense pressure and struggling to maintain the very image he had worked so hard to build. Well, what we've uncovered today is nothing short of wild. From Cesar's emotional breakdown to the legal mess surrounding his methods, the Dog Whisperer is definitely not the perfect success story we once thought it was. Behind the scenes, things have spiraled. and Millan is now facing some serious challenges. With everything that's gone down, from the controversial training incidents to his personal struggles, it's clear that not everything is as it seems in the world of dog training. The big question remains: will Cesar Millan be able to rebuild his empire and adapt to modern training standards? Or is this the end of the road for the dog whisperer? Only time will tell. But this drama is far from over, and you can bet the next twist is just around the corner. What do you think? Do you still believe in Cesar's methods? Or has dog training evolved beyond his approach? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more wild stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.